On the cold afternoon of January 15, 2009, what began as an ordinary flight quickly turned into one of the most remarkable survival stories in aviation history. US Airways Flight 1549, an Airbus A320, was scheduled to fly from New York City's LaGuardia Airport to Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a routine domestic flight, carrying 150 passengers and 5 crew members. Captain Chesley, Sully, Sullenberger and First Officer Jeffrey Skiles were in the cockpit. Skiles was piloting the takeoff, and everything about the departure appeared normal. The aircraft lifted off from runway 4 at LaGuardia at approximately 3:25 p.m. Eastern Time. A few minutes into the flight, as the plane climbed to an altitude of about 2,800 feet, disaster struck. The aircraft flew into a flock of Canada geese. Both engines ingested birds and suffered an almost immediate loss of thrust. The cockpit became alarmingly quiet. The Airbus A320 was now a glider. With no engine power, the plane began descending rapidly over one of the most densely populated cities in the world. Inside the cockpit, the crew immediately took control. Skiles handed the controls to Sullenberger, who had thousands of hours of flight experience. Their training kicked in. They attempted to restart the engines, called for help from air traffic control, and assessed possible options for an emergency landing. Returning to LaGuardia was one option. Teterboro Airport in New Jersey was another. But very quickly, it became clear that the plane would not make it to either runway. As time slipped by, seconds, not minutes, Captain Sullenberger made a decision that would become legendary. He announced that they would ditch the aircraft in the Hudson River. He informed air traffic control with the now famous words, "We're gonna be in the Hudson." From that moment, every action he took was precise, deliberate, and critical. In the cabin, passengers were becoming aware that something was wrong. The smell of smoke, the eerie silence of the engines, and the low altitude all signaled danger. Flight attendants followed protocol, issuing commands in calm but firm voices. They told passengers to brace, 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 heads down, stay down. Fear gripped the cabin, but confusion was minimized by the professionalism of the crew. Outside the cockpit, the situation demanded near perfection. Landing a commercial jet on water is an incredibly rare and difficult maneuver. The surface of the Hudson was cold and rough. The banks of the river were flanked by buildings and ferry terminals. Timing and alignment were everything. As the aircraft descended, Sullenberger leveled the wings and lifted the nose just before impact. At 3:31 p.m., just 6 minutes after takeoff, Flight 1549 struck the river. The landing was violent but controlled. The fuselage remained intact. There was no fire. The impact had forced open some seams and panels, allowing water to enter the cabin almost immediately. Within moments, passengers began evacuating. They climbed onto the wings, onto inflatable slides now used as rafts, and into the icy water. Some were waist-deep, some soaked to the chest, others managed to stay dry. In just a few minutes, the frigid January air added another layer of urgency. Nearby ferries and rescue boats reacted instantly. Crews from the NY Waterway Service were first on the scene, navigating their vessels close to the plane's wings and rafts. With astonishing speed and coordination, they began pulling people aboard. Police boats, fireboats, and helicopters joined in the rescue. Despite the chaos, the evacuation proceeded without panic. Passengers helped one another. Crew members accounted for people as best they could. Rescue workers fought both the current and the cold. The entire process, from the impact on the river to the last passenger rescued, took about 24 minutes. All 155 people aboard survived. Some suffered hypothermia, others had bruises or minor injuries, but there were no fatalities. It was an outcome so unlikely that it was dubbed the miracle on the Hudson. Investigators later credited a number of factors for the successful outcome. Chief among them was Captain Sullenberger's judgment, experience, and calm demeanor. His ability to assess the situation and make a swift decision was essential. First Officer Skiles, though newer to the A320, followed procedures perfectly and worked in complete coordination with Sullenberger. The cabin crew remained calm and disciplined, ensuring that passengers were as prepared as possible for the impact. The aircraft itself played a role as well. Though heavily damaged, it remained buoyant long enough for the evacuation. The slides deployed as intended, and the wings held the weight of dozens of passengers. Training paid off. not just for the crew, but also for the ferry operators and emergency responders. The entire event, while filled with danger and uncertainty, unfolded with a sense of discipline and humanity that stunned the world. In the days and months following the event, Flight 1549 was celebrated as an extraordinary example of competence, heroism, and grace under pressure. Captain Sullenberger became a national hero. He testified before Congress, wrote a book, and was portrayed in a film. But perhaps the most remarkable part of the miracle on the Hudson was not just the skill of one man, but the collective efforts of an entire group of people, crew, passengers, and first responders, who all played a part in saving every life aboard. Even now, years later, the landing of Flight 1549 remains one of the safest water landings in aviation history. It serves as a case study in training programs and is cited whenever people talk about calm under pressure and decision-making in a crisis. The aircraft now rests in a museum in North Carolina, a silent monument to those 6 harrowing minutes when time stopped, fear loomed, and yet, not a single life was lost. The miracle on the Hudson wasn't just about a plane that landed on a river. It was about what happens when preparation meets instinct, when humans rise to the challenge, and when, against all odds, everyone survives.